Welcome to another episode of For the First Time in Forever, a Spooktober edition. Last week, Spooktober ticked on as we took a look at an 80s blood-sucking cult classic that had more wacky sax players than one would care to see in a lifetime, The Lost Boys. And if you haven't seen that video, you can check it out by clicking the link in the description below. But this week, well, Spooktober's taken a stranger turn, as this video is going to focus on possibly one of the most infamously terrible horror films. A film that is widely regarded by some to be the most unintentionally hilarious horror film of all time. The 2006 remake of The Wicker Man. What? Did you think we were just going to focus on good movies for this series? Wait a second. I am going to be talking about spoilers for this film, so consider this your warning now.
This hers? Tell me!
Yes, I think it's, yeah.
How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned?
I don't know!
Okay, look, before we dive headfirst into this extraordinary piece of cinematic history, let's rewind a little and take a look at the original Wicker Man, released in 1973. Directed by Robin Hardy, The Wicker Man, when it was first released, quickly became regarded as a groundbreaking moment in the horror genre, with many critics referring to it as the Citizen Kane of horror movies. The story follows a police officer who is sent to a remote Scottish island to investigate the disappearance of a young girl. Soon, he realizes the inhabitants of the island are rather peculiar, partaking in ritualistic performances, reveling in promiscuity, and behaving in remarkably suspicious manners. This comes to a head when Officer Howie finds himself at the mercy of the islanders, who entrap him, sacrificing him to their gods in the hope of a prosperous harvest. The 1973 version won over critics and audiences because it was willing to challenge those who watched it. At that point in time, Hammer horror dominated the genre. Camp, cheap, but popular and simplistic to attract an audience. The Wicker Man, like the eponymous figure itself, emerged head and shoulders above the rest, declaring itself as what can be best described as a thinking man's horror. Horror that lingers in your mind the more you mull over situations in your head. Sure, it's outrageous and will more than likely get a few chuckles out of some who watch it, but beneath the crazy costumes, the naked dances, and Christopher Lee's interesting hairstyle, it's actually posing a deep and thought-provoking discussion on concepts of acceptance, differing religions and beliefs, and what constitutes the idea that there can only be one true God, and that all other religions can be just merely false. And we see this through Officer Howie's continual denouncing of the islanders and their pagan beliefs, refusing to accept that others may believe in something different to him. It's a fantastic exercise in how to create a tense and foreboding atmosphere and this prolonged sense of dread that seeps through the frame. But all the while, in moments where Britt Ekland's body double is dancing in the buff, Officer Howie sucker punches a lady while dressed as a jester, and a whole surplus of weird incidents occur, I was thankful that Robin Hardy had a sure enough footing to make sure that all of these outrageous events didn't stray into a comedic realm. Because that would just be unfortunate. So meet Neil LaBute, director of the 2006 remake of The Wicker Man, a director who clearly did not have as sure a footing as Hardy. The remake, starring Nicolas Cage, is known by many to be the quintessential so bad it's good movie. An unintentional comedy with Nicolas Cage at his most Nicolas Cage, so it has to be said, expectations were rather high, albeit not in the way expectations normally are. I can't lie, I was really intrigued just to see how much of a train wreck this actually was. And truth be told, I don't think it's anywhere near as atrocious as some people let on. Okay, look. The last 20 minutes of the film, that is where it earns its hilarious atrocity nature that it is known for, but then the build to that, it's just a bit dull. It follows a similar-ish plot to the original. Cage plays a police officer who is sent to a remote island to find a missing girl, and the residents all turn out to be part of this dangerous cult. However, Instead of LaBute sticking with Anthony Schafer's very profound approach towards religion, LaBute swaps that out for a generic desperate father arc for Cage's character that does very little to keep a hold of your interest. And so yeah, this is probably my biggest issue with this remake, is not that it's horrendous, not that it's laughably embarrassing in places, it's that it's just so damn dull. As soon as Cage steps foot on the island, like, we're aware that all might not be as it seems, but that level of intrigue never deepens. The Islanders are rather tame in comparison to what the 70s had to offer, and so the movie suffers because then you end up relying on the formulaic and creatively empty story of Cage's character investigating the disappearance of his daughter. Not to mention that the central cult themselves feel less religiously driven and more focused on bees and becoming creepy witch women who seek to silence the males of the island. Obviously, things do end up progressing, and it's roughly around the moment where Nicolas Cage's character is kind of trapped in this creepy basement underwater trap type setting. I don't know, the location design itself and the production design was incredibly vague, but he escapes, and that is when Cage dials up the intensity of his performance from 0 to 3,000 in the space of about a second. From that point on, that's when LaBute loses control, and he doesn't possess the nuance or subtlety to stop these outlandish events feeling like an out-of-control sketch. I mean, to give an example, we just have to look at the reveal of the Wicker Man. In the original version, Hardy deliberately prolongs the reveal before showing the horrified expression on Edward Woodward's face, and then revealing the intimidating structure to the audience. LaBute doesn't manipulate any sort of suspense or tension. It literally just rocks up into frame. There's no grand reveal, there's no sense of threat, it's just a giant figure made from wicker. So Cage is punching women left, right and centre. And at one point in arguably the best moment of the entire film, debatably it kind of made it worth watching, he runs up to a woman, dead silence, head to toe, dressed as a bear, and does this.
What is it? What's wrong, sister?
Oh, iconic. Iconic. From that point on, his line delivery just descends into screaming everything. We get the iconic Not the Bee scene, which is simply majestic to watch. Also, fun fact, the version I watched actually did not include that scene. The copy I saw was the original theatrical edition that skips the bee scene and watching his legs be broken, and skip immediately to him being dragged to the Wicker Man. Then there's also an additional scene where James Franco appears out of nowhere to reveal that the sisters of the island are recruiting new men to be sacrificed. In all honesty, in terms of like the laughably bad moments that this film is renowned for, look, the bear punch is easily number one, but coming in at a very close second are these constant visions that Nicolas Cage's character is having, where he sees the little girl from the car crash towards the beginning of the film that is never addressed as to what happened, whether he did hallucinate that to begin with, but he keeps seeing this girl, and at the most random moments she's then just bulldozed into by a truck. It's horrifically edited, and it's horrendous. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna show you the clip, and then I'm going to include a Looney Tunes sound effect with the clip again, and there's no difference. It's almost identical. Realistically, I don't think this is the horrendous disaster of a film that some people have made it out to be. I think there is a slight over-exaggeration where they've taken the final 20 minutes and decided that that is pretty much the entire film. Like I said, I don't think that the previous hour and 15 minutes is anything special. It's just very bland, creatively empty. And I think if you haven't really seen the original Wicker Man, I mean, this isn't exactly going to win you over, but I think if you aren't aware of some of the story beats and just how weird that this cult is meant to be, I think that may make it even weirder than you might expect. But yeah, Lebuc just doesn't have any. He doesn't bring anything to this film as a director. It's so, like I said, creatively empty. There's no originality. He hasn't taken the original Wicker Man and tried to make it his own. It's just an empty movie, and by the end he's completely lost control, and Cage is just flying off the rails, and that's when you get the hilarity that ensues for the final act. On the whole, though, I just don't think it's really worth your time. If you want to see how crazy this film can get, there are many compilations on YouTube that you'd save your time. So overall, after watching the 2006 remake of The Wicker Man for the first time in forever, honestly, don't bother. Anyway guys, those were my thoughts on that film. Let me know, what do you think of The Wicker Man? Do you think it is a train wreck, or is it one of the funniest comedies of all time? And as I'm sure some of you are aware, we are currently on the road to 300 subscribers, so if you are watching this video, you have enjoyed yourself, but you are not yet subscribed, what are you doing? Please click that subscribe button, and I promise you, you won't regret it. And for the final time, here is what you can look forward to next week as Spooktober comes to an end. Thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, please make sure that you click that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All the links to my social media accounts, my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and my letterbox are all in the description below. And if you haven't liked the video, what are you still doing here?